So here's a quick video that I'm going to make trying to show how we can import that nature set of objects and hopefully get it to where they look correct and maybe figure out a way to grab them without um, without them falling over. So here's that package. I'm going to hit import and I'm going to say yes. All right, and when I come into here in the materials, I still have that uh, same set of like brown and green that you had, I think, in yours. I double checked, and the way we can fix that, in fact, let's look at the prefabs. So let's do this. We're gonna click on Window, come down to Rendering, and then we're gonna come to this Render Pipeline Converter. And then we're going to click on Render Settings and Material Upgrade. And we're going to hit Initialize and then Convert. And let's see, why didn't that do that for all of them? Oh, actually, it looks like it did. I don't know why they're not changing colors, but if you look, it's definitely a different color. And then let's see what we got in here. Looks like those are just some scripts, and I think the meshes are probably okay. Do the same thing that we did before. I'm also going to do this generate light map UVs in case you want to do baked lighting. So I'm going to hit apply. And then, let's see, curious now if we do yeah, it doesn't look like it's doing exactly what we want it to do, but try this anyway. Let's try. Does that work? Oops. Yeah. Yeah, for some reason the the material import doesn't seem to work particularly well. But we can see that when we drag the prefabs on, that their size and their color seems to be more in line with what I think they're supposed to be. So this is sort of a two-tone green and brown. And again, you can pretty easily add things like the mesh collider onto them. And if you don't like the mesh collider, because you can see like when I click on this, like that mesh collider is kind of weird. It's definitely not making it as streamlined as I think it could be. So what you could do instead would be to create like a box collider. And the nice thing about the box collider would be that you could kind of um, control that effect a little bit better. So like for example, on the tree, if you added a box collider, you could just simply shrink it down to something closer to like the size of the trunk. Something like that. And then when you add the XR grab interactable, you can probably, my guess is that the center of mass will be based on the box collider and not on the tree itself. So presumably it will stay upright and not fall over. So we can give that a quick test. Well, provided it's at least on the ground. Okay, well, the other thing that you can do is on the box collider, can just make this like 0.5, 0.75, and then 1, and then 0.75 divided by 2. All right, so that should pretty much center it on the tree trunk there. And then instead of automatic center of mass, could put the center of mass at 0, 0, 0, which would be like at the very bottom, I think. And again, in that way, it might help it to not fall over. So you can see it's got more of a pendulum kind of vibe to it now. So by putting that center of mass at the very bottom, you could see that it doesn't want to tip over. So you could do something like that. You can see it's got more of a funny pendulum kind of thing. So that might be a clever trick you could do is just set the center of mass basically at the zero. And if you really wanted to hedge your bets, you could probably even do something like that, which would really like kind of counterweight it. So you can play around with that. That'll hopefully give you a way of doing it. Um, but on these like smaller objects, it probably makes sense to add the mesh collider. Looks pretty reasonably decent there. The mesh collider on the rock actually looks pretty good, and then the mesh collider on the little I'm not sure what that is, shrub, whatever, um, also looks like reasonably good. And so then I would just say go ahead and add the XR grab interactable to that. And it looks like on the mesh collider, you don't have the option for setting the center of gravity or center of mass. So maybe if you wanted to, you could take that off, add the box collider again, and you can kind of play around with that in terms of the size and whatnot. So, well, I take that back. I guess the center of mass is on the rigid body. So yeah, you could maybe you keep the mesh collider, take the center of mass off. So everybody's gonna have the mesh collider. Go. They all need to be set to convex. Cool. And then, oops. Cool. All right, so all of these, set the center of mass to 0. Again, when I hit play, come back into the scene. You can see I can take this object, drop it from a pretty substantial height, and it'll just kind of wobble around, but it eventually will come to the same point. And we'll do a tutorial later on that uses those sockets, and that might be a way of if you want to control the position or the rotation of these objects in a particular way, you could use the sockets to maybe do that, which would also help kind of snap them into place. The other thing you might do is create a script that specifically controls, just how much these things can move. So, um, essentially ignoring the physics and, controlling it yourself. So just play around with that, but that's how I would do it. Again, you can use these prefabs as is. So that's probably the easiest thing to do is coming up here using the render pipeline converter to get the colors. That way you can just use the native colors. If you want to change it, that's up to you. And then you can go ahead and add the XR grab interactable. And I can try to grab these and see what happens. I'm assuming it'll work. So let me put my headset on and we'll take a look. All right, so I'll go over here. All right, so I was able to pick up the tree. I could pick up this guy. Pick up that guy. Move the tree around. Move the plant. You can rotate it. And then grab this guy. And put that right there. Now the other thing you can do that I'll show you really quickly is if you wanted to have these things interact with the rest of the world, like the buildings and the ground, but not necessarily with each other, so that you could put things close together and not have them kind of knock into each other. What I would do is I would take these and I would put them on a layer and call it, plants. And then you could come back and select these, set them to plants, and then in your project settings, come over to physics. You can see that these are all of the different layers and what layers they can interact with. So if you don't want plants to collide with other plants so that you can put them like really, really close together, you can just uncheck that. And then in that way, plants will still be grabbable because like your interactables can still interact with the plants. So their colliders will work when you try to grab it, but other plants won't collide with other plants. So all right, so go back out. Uh, mm, for some reason that's not working, but it should work that way. So let me double check that I got that set up right. So these are set to plant, and the making sure my left and right controller aren't on some weird layer that would prevent them from interacting. Okay, so I checked on what setting I was messing up, and yeah, so as long as you have all four of these set up the same way, you can use the mesh collider on all of them. If you want to change this to a box collider, that would work too. Um, then you would set the center of mass to 0 so that they all kind of pivot on their lowest point so they won't fall over. And then what you want to do is you want to take all four of these, you set them to that plants layer. We do want to do the project settings on the physics so that the plants don't collide with each other. And the other thing that you could or might want to do maybe would be to also put your XR character controller, like your origin, on a different just on a different layer, because I did notice that if I moved quickly enough or like teleported into these, could accidentally like launch them off into space. But I would play around with that last. And the big thing you got to do is one, I would put these on velocity tracking, and I would put the collision detection on continuous, and then on the attach, make sure that you have the dynamic attach point on, and then that should be good for that piece. And then there's one more set of settings. Just going to turn that off for the moment. I just want to double check it, but you may have to come in and modify the raycast interaction to detect the plant layer, because I think it's currently set up only for the default and UI layer because of that action controller manager piece. So you can see like this is a UI. Those are on the default layer, but I think the plants that we just added are on the plant layer, so that may not detect. Yeah, so that plant layer doesn't seem to register because of that. Um, so all you need to do is come over to your Ray interactor if you want to grab things from farther away, and you come to this Raycast mask, and you click on that after you've added the plants to the plant layer. And once you do that, then you will be able to grab them using the Raycast as well as the grab interactor. So I'll show you how that works, and that'll be it. All right. So I can grab it with the Raycast now. I can grab that with the Raycast. I can grab that with the Raycast. And you can see I can pass these objects kind of through each other, so I can get them like really, really close if I wanted to do that. That way they don't kind of collide with each other. And then I can also reach out and I can grab it, just using the grab interaction. And so I can place that. So now you can place things like pretty close together. And they'll eventually stop wobbling after a little bit of time. All right, hopefully that's helpful. If you get stuck, let me know. But this will let you kind of work on it on your own time. And then if you still need some additional help, just shoot me an email or something.